Hey guys, it's Cece, and today I am here to do a monthly recommendations video. It has been a little while since I've done a monthly recommendations video, so just in case you don't know, let me tell you what it is. So first and foremost, it's right there in the title, I'm going to be recommending some books to you, but more than that, monthly recommendations is a Goodreads group. It was created by Trina from the channel Between Chapters, as well as Kayla Rain from the channel Kayla Rain. Each month, Kayla and Trina choose a topic, and everyone who is a part of monthly recommendations recommends books based on that topic. Anyone can be a part of it, so if you're interested in learning more, the links to the Goodreads group will be in the description, as well as links to both of these lovely people's channels. And the theme for October, since it's spooky stuff in October, is going to be mysteries. I'm going to be talking about some of my favorite mysteries. It can be my favorite mysteries in thrillers, in horror, in just mystery novels, and I'm going to be talking about a bit of everything. So I'm going to start in stuff that is more just standard mystery novel, and we're going to slowly move into thrillers and then into horror. That's basically everything I need to talk about. Let's just get started so I can recommend some books. So first of all, talking about mysteries would be weird if I didn't bring up Agatha Christie. Specifically, I want to talk about these two books because I think they are both great picks for different reasons. First of all, let's talk about And Then There Were None. And Then There Were None is about 10 people who go to an island. They are lured there for reasons unknown, and then they start to be murdered off one by one, and they have to get to the bottom of who is killing them before, you know, they're all dead. This is an excellent book. It is scary, mysterious, there are tons of twists and turns, and I absolutely adore it. It is perfect for this season. But I also have to talk about Murder on the Orient Express. This was the first Agatha Christie book I ever read. I read it twice when I was in high school, and I love it. Plus, the movie is coming out next month, so this is the perfect time to have like a refresher or to read it for the first time in preparation. This is about a murder on a train, which is pretty standard fare for Agatha Christie, but it is about the Orient Express that stops in its path in a snowdrift, and when all the passengers wake up, someone has been murdered, and who should be on the train to solve the mystery but renowned detective Hercule Poirot. This is also a really detailed mystery full of lots of different characters and plot lines. It is really intricate, and since the movie is coming up, it just felt like I couldn't help but recommend this mystery as well. Next up, I want to talk about Mr. Penumbra's 24-Hour Bookstore by Robin Sloan. This one has just like a hint of adventure to it, I think. But this is about a guy named Clay who is feeling kind of stuck in his life, and then he gets a job at Mr. Penumbra's 24-Hour Bookstore. Before long, Clay realizes that there aren't a lot of patrons at the bookstore, but there are a few eccentric people who never buy anything. They just come in and borrow these really ancient books. Clearly, they are all trying to solve some kind of ancient mystery, and Clay wants in on the action. This is so much fun, and if you're a lover of books, this is a perfect pick. It's fun and lighthearted with a lot of eccentric characters, and it perfectly combines books with newer technologies. Like, you have Clay, who's really good on his computer, and then balancing him, you have a character like Mr. Penumbra, who's this old man who owns an old bookstore, and then you have a love interest for Clay, who is a Google employee. This book is just a ton of fun, and I highly recommend it. Let's talk about a standard for me, The 13th Tale by Diane Setterfield. This is a gothic mystery, also perfect if you love to read. This is a book about a woman named Margaret who is hired out of the blue to write the biography of Vida Winter. Vida is famous for writing a collection of stories, the 13 Tales, but the weird thing about this is that there are only 12 in the book, so that's kind of the mystery of Vida Winter. And then as Vida is telling her story, a gothic mystery that is just full of darkness and these twisty-turny lives, Margaret is also trying to solve the mystery of her own past. This is a phenomenally crafted book, really well written, and if you love that gothic, dark feeling in your books, this is such a good one to go to. Also, if you like mysteries and that gothic kind of feeling, I recommend Jane Unlimited by Kristin Cashore, which is a fairly new release. Kristin Cashore has specifically talked about the fact that this was influenced by gothic stories like Jane Eyre and Rebecca, And it's also a choose-your-own-adventure story, kind of. It is about a girl named Jane who has recently lost her beloved guardian aunt Magnolia. She drops out of college and she's feeling really lost in life. And then an old tutor of Jane's appears out of nowhere and invites Jane to spend some time at her family mansion. It is a mansion chock full of weird, quirky characters with intertwining lives, and then Jane is faced with a choice. There are 5 options, and each of those 5 options will drastically alter her life as she knows it. This starts as a gothic mystery, but each of the 5 choices that Jane makes sends her into not only a different version of her life, but a different genre entirely. So there are lots of different types of mysteries, as well as lots of different endings to that beginning mystery of who Jane is and what is going on at this mansion. If you like Agatha Christie, if you like gothic mysteries, this is such a good pick because it combines all of those things while also being about a queer girl and also having chapters that are like psychological horror, sci-fi, fantasy. It's just excellent. Along somewhat similar lines, I want to talk about Every Heart a Doorway by Seanan McGuire. This is the first book of a companion novel series. 2 of them are out so far, and I think both are great October reads. Every Heart a Doorway itself is basically a portal fantasy, but also a murder mystery. It is about children who have gone through doors and gone to other worlds and then are dumped back into our own, and the children don't really know how to process this. So they're sent to a home for other children like them. And like I said, there's also a murder mystery element. The main character of this book is asexual. There's a trans side character. There are 2 side characters, and they get a prequel novel where you find out that one of those 2 girls is queer. The writing of this book is just really lush and fantastical, and it feels almost like a dark fairy tale. It's just so good. Both of these books are. I just got an arc of the 3rd one. I'm dying to read it. So in case you haven't heard me gushing about Every Heart a Doorway already, please go read Every Heart a Doorway. So now we're getting into thrillers, and the first one I'm going to talk about is Sharp Objects by Gillian Flynn. Of course, I would like to recommend every Gillian Flynn book. They're all really creepy, they're all good mysteries, but I'm going to talk about Sharp Objects. And that's because of all of Gillian Flynn's books, this one falls most into mystery, in my opinion. This book is about a woman named Camille. She is a reporter, and she is tasked with returning to her hometown to get to the bottom of a mystery. There are these really brutal murders happening to preteen girls, and she is supposed to kind of get to the bottom of it. Her hometown is kind of this twisted, backwards southern town full of really creepy people. She feels herself identifying with victims, being pulled back into her mother's intense need to control, but also going to this book knowing that it's somewhat surreal. It's like someone took a creepy southern town and then cranked it up a few notches to the point where sometimes it feels over the top, but that's just kind of the writing style of this book. So I've heard people have a problem with that. Kind of going knowing it's surreal in its creepy setting. Let's talk about a couple of classic authors of mysteries and horror. Gonna start with Dean Koontz, so I want to recommend Phantoms by Dean Koontz. Again, if you're looking for mystery stories, you could also try something like Intensity or Watchers. He writes good, scary, fast-paced stories. Phantoms was the first of his that I read, and it remains my absolute favorite. It is a mystery, but it is also deeply terrifying. This book starts with 2 sisters. The older sister is being tasked with taking care of her younger sister, and when they pull into town, everything is eerily quiet. It seems like all of the people who had been there the day before are now missing, and when they start to investigate, they find most of the house is empty, but some still have people inside who are dead, their faces frozen in terror forever. This is a scary book, and it's also a super intriguing mystery. I think that it is totally worth the ride. Another classic author that I have to mention is Stephen King. I'm personally going to be recommending Pet Sematary. I don't know how much of a mystery this is. It's very mysterious, but I wanted to talk about this one because I read it last year in October, and it was such an excellent October read. The story is about a family who moves into a new house, and it's also about a pet cemetery where children used to bury their pets when they had died. But when the main character of this book buries a pet in the pet cemetery, something comes back out. This book made me scared when I was reading it in broad daylight on a commuter train. It's spooky and intense, and I mean, it's Stephen King. You can read so many of his books at this time of year. This is the perfect Stephen King time of year. I also love Misery, The Long Walk, The Green Mile. I think Stephen King writes great books, and I'm sure you already knew this, but I wanted to talk about Pet Sematary because I read it last October and loved it. Second to last, I want to talk about Horns by Joe Hill, who is actually Stephen King's son, funnily enough. Horns is about a guy named Ig. He wakes up with horns growing out of his head, and he suddenly has the ability to, when he tells people to do something, they immediately do it. I have a fondness for stories that get a little demonic and a little twisted, which means that this book is like perfectly up my alley, and maybe it's not for you, but that's the kind of story this is. He wakes up with devil horns growing out of his head, so expect more of that. But I think it's just excellent. If you've seen the movie, I swear that does not even scratch the surface of how good a book this is. And it's a mystery because it's about Ig trying to figure out not only where the horns came from, but there's also a parallel story going on where Ig is talking about a mystery of his past that he's also slowly putting together. Yeah, I absolutely love this book, and I would also really love to read more by Joe Hill, because so far this is the only book of his that I've read. And finally, I want to talk about The Dead House by Dawn Kurtagich. This is a mystery that you are kind of putting together. The book is alternative format, so it's almost like you've been handed a case file and you're just reading the mystery unfold. So there are interviews, there are transcriptions of video clips, there are pages ripped out of diaries. The video transcripts are easily my favorite part. They are so eerie. This book is kind of about two sisters who occupy the same body. Carly has the day and Caitlin has the night. This is much more Caitlin's story than Carly's. From the beginning, you know that something terrible happened to the school they attended, and a lot of people think Caitlin did it, and you are just slowly getting to the bottom of this mystery. This book is so creepy. This was another one that I read last October that had me scared reading it midday in broad daylight. It's a mystery, and it's also super spooky. I'm hopefully reading another of Dawn Kurtagich's book this October, so I had to recommend this one because I just adore it. Okay guys, there you go. Those are all of my favorite mysteries that I wanted to talk about this month. Do you have a favorite mystery, regardless of whether that falls into just mystery, maybe thriller, maybe horror, somewhere in the middle of all of those things? Let me know down in the comments below, and let me know if you have read any of the books I mentioned today in this video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in another video very soon. Bye!